Chapter 7. Creaking gently, the door opened, releasing a plume of cigarette smoke and noise, which were almost instantly intoxicating and calming. The guests stood as trees in an early morning misty forest. Passing between the guests, he heard the tapestry of languages which made a mesmerizing sound. At this moment, finding Vasil was a task in itself. Now heading towards where he had last seen the Ukrainian party, a knot was fastening in his stomach. Anticipation over nervous fear that Vasil would be gone and he would never see him or the Eastern European contingent again. At last he caught sight of the back of Vasil's head, and the knot was untied slightly. Although prying him away from what looked to be a somewhat involved discussion he was conducting with his colleagues was going to be hard. "Hello everybody, sorry about that. Are you all enjoying yourselves?" he asked, as he was greeted by polite smiles. "Francis, my friend, show us where you keep your best spirits. I'm still cold to the bone from being outside," complained Vasil. "Of course, but we'll have to go upstairs to my study. That's where I keep all of my best stuff." "How would you gentlemen like to join us upstairs for a short while? Then we'll be straight back down here," invited Francis, hoping desperately that they would decline. "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Ambassador, but we must go now. The weather is bad, and it will be dangerous for us to leave later," said the young-faced Ukrainian, with a firm but unerringly friendly tone. "Yes, I do hope that the weather does ease up a little bit, or else most of us will be stranded here. Obviously, that would be fine for me, but I hope everybody's designated driver has stayed away from the alcohol," grinned Francis, stretching out his hand to Georgi, who had already thrown his coat over his broad shoulders. "It has been my pleasure to have you all here, and I hope it will be my pleasure again someday. It's a shame you have to leave so early, but I can fully understand." Grasping Francis's hand with bear-like ferocity, Georgi pulled him closer so that he could be heard clearly amongst the bustling guests and whispered, "The pleasure has been all ours." "I imagine I'll be leaving soon too," interjected Vasil. "You cannot leave all your guests here. This is your celebration, so you must stay," exclaimed Georgi. Vasil nodded as his countrymen turned and started to make headway towards the exit, shaking hands and saying their goodbyes to acquaintances along the way. Unhooking their coats from the clothes stand in the hallway, Francis felt uneasy at the seeming haste with which they wanted to leave. They even appeared to encourage Vasil to stay. Opening the door, they filed out and turned to face him. "Do you have far to go?" asked Francis. "The hardest thing will be the walk to our cars," joked Stefan. Francis's mobile phone rang out from his trouser pocket, and as he brought it out he remained engaged in frivolous niceties at the door. He saw that he had received a text message from a number which he didn't recognize. "Time to go." Reading the message, Francis looked up and tried to continue without giving any indication of what he had just read. "Yes, of course. I'm sorry to have made you park next door and walk across, but I'm sure you understand it was worth it for the surprise. Thank you all for coming, and I wish you a safe trip. Drive carefully now." "We will," replied Georgi. "Thank you very much, and see you soon." Turning away, Francis retreated into the house and closed the door. Resting his back against it, he stood in the dark hallway and allowed the message he had just received to sink in. The Russians were gone, now the Ukrainians, and a message from an unknown number. Nervously walking back towards the hall of guests, he was sure he was paler than the snow outside, and he felt twice as cold. Opening the door, Vasil stood with his back turned towards him, refilling his glass of wine. His hands trembling slightly, Francis slowly approached him and once again removed the mobile phone from his pocket. Flicking it onto the message, he stood next to Vasil and picked up one of the glasses, which had been poured already. Without saying anything, Francis passed the phone to Vasil, who looked uncertain as to why he was being given the telephone. "Did you send this to me?" asked Francis, his voice trembling slightly. Taking a moment to read through the text, Vasil passed the phone back to Francis and looked him straight in the eyes. "No, I didn't send it. We need to speak." "Yes, we do. Come with me," he said, leading Vasil from the room full of guests. They walked to the end of the hallway and into the library. "Please sit down," said Francis curtly as Vasil sank into one of the red leather reading chairs. Closing the door to the library and locking it, Francis regained his composure. "What is going on?" he asked in a serious and urgent tone. "What does this message mean, and who sent it?" "I shouldn't be involved in this. If you knew what I know, then you wouldn't want me anywhere near you or your family." "Don't worry about my family. They left a long time ago. Tell me about the message. Who sent it to me, and what is going on?" "Do you trust me?" asked Vasil. "No," replied Francis, "but I will trust you more once you tell me what's going on. Am I in danger by having you here?" Rising from the chair, Vasil walked towards Francis and stood barely a foot away. "My people are not stupid. They do not, have the full picture yet, but they know there is a picture to be seen. You have to trust me, and you have to understand that I do not have time to explain to you now what is happening." "Is your family really gone from the house?" inquired Vasil, his English now showing stress fractures and becoming somewhat disjointed. "Yes, they have gone. My wife keeps her car in the back, and they left over half an hour ago. They should call me when they get to the embassy." "Good. We must leave now, and we must go in my car," dictated Vasil. "What about all of the guests? And should we not go in my car?" "No, we must go in mine, and we must go now. You will not be sorry for listening to me, Francis. There is somewhere we must go, and it could change the course of humanity." And with that, Vasil jumped from his seat and opened the study door, leaving it open for Francis to follow. Francis, having turned and faced his collection of books, all neatly gathering dust upon his bookshelves, had not heard the last of Vasil's words, but rather now found himself in a state of semi-cognition, frozen in momentary panic and uncertainty. Momentary though it may have been, it seemed like an eternity as his eyes scanned over the spines of the tomes. He found himself recounting when and where he had been when he had read them. Floating in a daze of reminiscence, he was aware that he had to go with Vasil. He also suspected that he was in real danger, but somehow the familiar surroundings and the warmth of memory which was absorbing him allowed him a brief but convincing denial of reality. The reality where he had had to send away his wife and children from their own home in the dead of night to the safety of a government building in a foreign country, and where he now faced an uncertain future, danger even, in the company of somebody who, by all appearances, was withholding vital information. Recoiling from his thoughts for a minute, Francis began to consider the possibility of simply going back into the hall where the guests he had invited were still enjoying themselves, and carrying on as if he had not received a text message. How could he trust a text message from an unknown source when it could have been that very source that posed a threat to him? Reaching for the telephone on the desk behind him, he rested his fingers pensively upon the receiver. Should he call the private security station which serviced the ambassadorial estates in Sofia? Hi, my name's Antony Botting, and I'm the author of the Pebble in the Dark trilogy. If you'd like to hear more of this story, please subscribe to this channel and ring the bell below. See you next time.